Hi, and welcome back to Medical Missions TV, everyone. We are still on the northern coast of Honduras at Loma de Luz Mission Hospital. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have an opportunity to sit down with many of the staff and hear their story of serving here at Loma de Luz. Today, we're sitting down with Dr. Peter and Katie Stockton. Peter is a board-certified ER physician, and Katie is a teacher who's been teaching at the school at this facility for some time. The Stocktons have served as Christian Health Service Corps missionaries since 2013. Join us now as we sit down with them to hear a little bit about their story and their service here in Central America. So for those of you watching, I'm here with Peter and Katie Stockton. They are missionaries here at Loma de Luz Hospital, and Katie is a teacher and Peter is an ER physician. And we are really excited to be able to sit down and chat with you guys a little bit. And so I wanted to start out by asking you, there's three questions I've asked all of our missionaries. One is, what have been your major blessings? What have been your major challenges? And then what advice would you give a new missionary? And then I've got some surprise questions for you, so we'll go from there. So what do you think let's start with the challenges. What do you think have been your major challenges? Because I think every mission field has its issues and challenges, and this one is got some great beauty here. I think the Lord blesses I think the poor sometimes with some of the most beautiful places, but it obviously has challenges. Maybe you can share some of those challenges that you've had adjusting as a family to the mission field and
I think, you want to answer this one? You go.
I have like three things that I think of right away. I think of the first is that the cultural differences are hard, but that always seems to take a second, kind of a backseat to the relationships with other missionaries. I think when you have it good, you have it good, and then something can happen, and then the whole rest of the time that you're there, there's this awkwardness, this unsussed kind of thing. And so I think that's been really a great blessing, and a really hard thing is with some people, it's like I have this perfect record, and with other people I don't. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I feel like that the relationships have either been really good, or amazingly good, or amazingly hard. And I think that God does that. It's iron sharpening iron. I think that it's a process that you go through, and you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about what God wants you to do. I think that's the biggest wrench in the machine is the other people, the other missionaries. The odds are good you'll find a good missionary, but the odds are good that the goods are odd as well.
So the goods are odd. I like that. That's I'm going to have to quote that.
The second thing I think is that a really hard thing for me was to find exactly what God wanted me to do here, because I came in thinking I'm going to be an ER doctor, I'm going to save lives, I'm going to intubate people, I'm going to do critical care, I'm going to do all this stuff. And man, that got the brakes put on it right away. And I really started to realize that I need to identify as a missionary, as someone who is trying to bring love and Jesus to people, and that is so much more important than anything else that I could do. And it's funny, I noticed when I first came that I always would say I'm a doctor, I'm working in Honduras, and now I say I'm a missionary, and if people ask, then I'll tell them I'm a doctor. But I really feel like that's a big shift in how you think about life. Is I'm not here to save anybody. I'm here to hopefully promote the gospel, promote Jesus, and let Him be the focus of what I'm doing. And I've had to take a back seat to being a physician, and that was hard for me. I don't know. That was interesting. That was a big change in my perspective of why I'm here. Yeah. Those two are the big ones. There's a third thing, but it's mine.
I think the hardest thing for me that's been the most surprising is how difficult relationships with other missionaries are. And people talk about that, but I thought that it wouldn't apply to us. because we're pretty good with people, but when you live and work in church and everything with all the same people all the time, it's hard.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the other thing that's been the hardest for me, which is kind of obvious, but is just being away from family.
Yeah.
It's hard not to have your kids grow up around, grandparents and cousins, and
Sure.
so, but yeah.
My family's kind of all dead. Just have like 2 brothers. So it's not that big a deal for me. I do miss my brothers. And my extended family.
Oh, Peter.
The
you're always-
survivors.
So,
Oh, brother.
so let me ask you, enough of the downers. What have been your major blessings here?
I love seeing my kids here. I love seeing my kids here. And I feel like I love hearing them speak in Spanish. I love seeing them interact with their classmates at school. I love having them outside playing in the grass all the time. I love how, because of where we are, we're in a safe community. I love that they're outside and growing up like kids should. I just love everything about
We're raising wild
my
monkeys.
kids. Well, we are raising wild monkeys, but I love everything about raising my kids here. That's hands down for me the biggest blessing.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's my favorite thing about living here. So, well, and who can argue with this view?
Yeah. That's quite a blessing in itself.
I really love that the thing with the kids. I love that's probably close to my number one. My number one is actually seeing my wife and myself move and grow and press into God, and really through hard times, through good times, really deciding that your walk is what's important, and your closest to God is so paramount. And when you drift away, you kind of fight to get back, and that's to me, that's something that it's visceral here. It's not, it's not like you can kind of drift and be good on Sundays and the kind of thing. You gotta walk the walk and talk the talk here. And I've seen changes in my wife that are just amazing. She's grown into a prayer warrior, and she's always steeped in the Word, and and I feel like my walk with God has changed in so many ways, and there's so many things that you realize that you didn't realize before. And I don't know, I kind of thought I had a lot of stuff figured out, I guess. Maybe that's part of it, but the growth in my wife, the growth in my kids. We're driving back from town yesterday, and my kids are all singing praise songs in the back of the car, and I just my family is where I want them to be. My family is where I want them to be with God, and that's because we came here. That's because we were obedient.
That's awesome. So what do you think what have been your best experiences here? What have been blessings? I mean, what are the good things about Loma de Luz that you can recount?
One of my favorite memories of being here is there's a kid. This is my 3rd year teaching 4th grade, and my class last year was very difficult. It was all boys. I had 4 girls and all boys, and probably in the United States they would all be on medication, all of the boys. So it was a very, very challenging year. But in the last year, in the last few months, all of them have actually given their life to Jesus, which has been amazing. But one of the boys who was very difficult last year, he gave his life to Jesus, and I got the opportunity to go to his baptism. And he was baptized in the ocean.
That's
and
awesome.
it was just so precious in his little local church, and the music and how excited people were for him, and it was just really special to be a part of that. So that was probably one of my highlights, just to see you know, that wasn't something that I thought would necessarily happen when we came to Loma de Luz,
Yeah.
because I didn't really even expect to teach. But just how the Lord has used, you know, how he uses obedience and willingness to step out and serve in an area that isn't necessarily my gifting, but to see how he's used that anyways, it was just really, it was really cool.
It's awesome. What about you, Peter?
I have so many amazing things. I mean, I've gone swimming with dolphins. I've got to, you know, swoop in and save people's lives. I've got to do. I teach jujitsu, and I got to see these kids change over the years, just radically change, from drunk and high and just retarded to coming back and being normal and and you know, getting discipline. And the patient interactions that I have, you know, I would pray with my patients all the time. I'm in these people's lives. Like these are my people. This is where I'm doing what God has me doing, and I feel it every day. I feel the connection with my patients. I feel the connection with the kids in jiu-jitsu. I feel the connection with my kids and with the school kids and the kids at the children's center, and it's just amazing to see what you know. I could not. Makes me think of Moses and the Israelites when they're stuck against the Red Sea and they're all crying out, "Oh, thanks a lot for taking us on this huge march to die at the edge of the ocean." And the Egyptians are bearing down on them, and then they cross on dry land, and it's this big miracle, and they have all this joy and celebration on the other side. And I feel like I had that same experience where I was like, "Oh no, this is going to be terrible. This is so horrible. You know, it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. People are going to not speak English. Like my Spanish is pretty good, and then I find out that Spanish is terrible, and then there's all sorts of things that happen. But then the crazy thing is that I'm on that other side of that Red Sea. I'm rejoicing that God has saved me and put me here, and I don't know. I'm really happy with my choice to obey God and our choice to decide to come down here in obedience to God's calling, and the fruit that I see from that is pretty amazing. I mean, it's stuff that I never would have seen before.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate it.